This week on Christian World News, a new day in U.S.-Israeli relations. The powerful words President Trump used to describe America's support for the Jewish state.
Plus, will this Christian governor win an election, or will he go to jail? The political contest that's testing religious tolerance in the world's largest Muslim nation.
And buried alive by an avalanche of snow. With only minutes to rescue his brother, this man called out to God and heard the answer he needed.
여러분 안녕하십니까? 크리스천 월드뉴스입니다. 이번 미국 대선에서는 많은 미국 복음주의 기독교인들이 트럼프 대통령을 지지했습니다. 미국과 이스라엘의 관계 회복에 대한 기대가 큰 이유 중에 하나였는데요. 얼마 전 베냐민 네타냐후 이스라엘 총리가 백악관을 방문했습니다. 오늘의 첫 번째 소식입니다.
Thank you. Again, thank you.
A rekindled friendship chased away any winter chill at the White House Wednesday. After years of tension with the Obama administration, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sees President Trump as a key partner.
I've known the president and I've known his family and his team for a long time. And there is no greater supporter of the Jewish people and the Jewish state than President Donald Trump.
But there are key issues to work through, starting with how to achieve peace between Israel and the Palestinians.
As with any successful negotiation, both sides will have to make compromises. You know that, right?
In comments that would no doubt anger Palestinian leaders, Trump said a two-state solution isn't a requirement for peace.
So I'm looking at two-state and one-state, and I like the one that both parties like. I'm very happy with the one that both parties like. I can live with either one.
Netanyahu maintains Palestinians must recognize Israel's right to exist before any peace plan can move forward.
You have to ask yourself, why are Jews called Jews? Well, the Chinese are called Chinese because they come from China. The Japanese are called Japanese because they come from Japan. Well, Jews are called Jews because they come from Judea. This is our ancestral homeland. Jews are not foreign colonialists in Judea.
The other thorny issue is on so-called settlements. In the West Bank, Netanyahu has pushed forward, but the White House says that may not be the best move for a peace deal. It's a topic CBN News asked about at their joint news conference.
On the settlement issue, are you both on the same page? How do you exactly term that as it relates to the settlement issue?
As far as settlements, I'd like to see you hold back on settlements for a little bit. We'll work something out, but I would like to see a deal be made. I think a deal will be made.
Let's try it.
Doesn't sound too optimistic, but that's he's a good negotiator.
That's the art of the deal.
David Brody, CBN News.
두 정상의 만남은 기독교인들에게 어떤 영향을 끼칠까요? 지난 몇 주간 예루살렘과 워싱턴을 오가며 취재한 기자와 함께 좀 더 자세한 내용 나눠보겠습니다.
What's the significance of this meeting between the two leaders for Christians?
Christians voting in the United States, particularly 80% for Donald Trump. Part of the reason that they cast their votes for Donald Trump involved Israel. Trump, down the campaign stretch in the last moments of the campaign, last weeks actually, talked frequently about promising to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and also talked about really reestablishing a relationship with Israel that the United States would be more comfortable for Israel. And that has a lot to do with how Israel is portrayed in the Bible, where the Lord says in Genesis, I will bless those who bless thee and curse those who curse thee. And so there's really a scriptural core to the support that Christians gave to Donald Trump. That's part of it, not to mention all the people around the world who have been praying for Israel. And you can see the increase in tourism in Jerusalem from places like China and Indonesia. Lots of Christians are praying for the peace of Jerusalem and are actually coming there.
John, as you know, tens of thousands of Christians in the Middle East have been forced to flee from their homes and have even faced genocide. Do you think these two leaders can bring any hope for them?
Well, I think there is some hope, George. They're talking about a regional kind of cooperation between the United States and Israel and other states that don't want to see the expansion of radical Islam. Now, if that happens, it means that there's an alliance that can actually defeat the people who have been persecuting Christians, like ISIS, who have been forcing them from their homes and putting them to death. And so that gives some hope that the Christians will be treated well when they're away from their homes, and also that there'll be a more stable environment in the Middle East.
You know, for years, the international community has called for this thing called a two-state solution between Israel and the Palestinians. What's the biblical significance behind the push for a Palestinian state on the West Bank?
Well, actually, George, that is the territory, the exact territory that the Lord calls in different places in the Bible, the mountains of Israel, my land. He admonishes the nations of the world not to divide his land, and yet that's exactly what the international push has been about for the last 4 decades. This is a biblical patrimony, a land that was promised to the Jewish people 4,000 years ago.
John, as always, sir, thank you for coming on the broadcast.
Thank you, George.
인도네시아는 주지사 선거를 앞두고 있습니다. 그런데 가장 유력한 후보인 바수키 자하야 푸르나마는 기독교 신자이자 현 주지사로 이슬람 신성모독 혐의로 현재 재판 중이라고 하는데요. 앞으로의 결과에 관심이 집중되고 있습니다. 인도네시아로 가보시죠.
Jakarta's incumbent governor Basuki Cahayapurnama, popularly known as Ahok, was among the early voters in the gubernatorial election. The governor is currently on trial for allegedly insulting Islam, and some Indonesians believe that may cause him to lose this election. But his supporters say his record of good governance may lead to victory regardless of the charges against him. Bonnie Hargens is a Muslim political analyst.
Ahok is one of the best governors Jakarta has ever had. Ahok has no problem with the Muslims. And the Muslims are moderate. The Muslims are rational. The Muslims are compatible with democracy. But the hardliners are rejecting the idea of democracy.
Christians believe Ahok is an answer to prayer in the world's most populous Muslim country.
This has been going on now for almost 30 years, this momentum of prayer for Indonesia and for its government. And I see the rise of Basuki Cahayapurnama, a God-ordained leader being raised up, fearless in integrity, focused on being a transparent, godly leader.
McClendon says if Ahok becomes the freely elected governor of Jakarta, this can open the way for a double minority, Ahok being Christian and Chinese, to be president of Indonesia in the future.
He says, why can't I become president? I'm Indonesian, just like everybody else. And so that path would be open to him if he becomes the freely elected governor of Jakarta.
All religion is the same, have the same right and responsibility in this nation. And actually, we are educated by our parents to love this nation and really to do the best for this nation. So we love the Muslim and the Muslim love us.
The winning candidate must receive more than 50% of the vote. The final election results are expected within 3 weeks. If the votes of the winners are less than 50%, a second round between the top 2 candidates will be held in April.
The people here at the Ahok headquarters are very ecstatic because their candidate is leading in the quick count. If Ahok wins, this is a strong indication that Indonesia is a country that is run by democratic principles and not by religion and ethnicity.
And even if he loses, the public will still look at Ahok's good performance as a work barometer for whoever succeeds him. Lucille Talusan, CBN News, Jakarta.
최근 중국에서는 CCM의 인기가 매우 높아지고 있다고 합니다. 특히 레인보우라는 이름을 가진 중국인 기독교 밴드가 큰 사랑을 받고 있다고 하는데요. 중국으로 가보시죠.
Chinese millennials love rock and roll music. It's not new to China, but rock is growing in popularity among young Chinese. Uncle Bing is the lead singer of Rainbow, a rock band formed in 2012. Few people knew about the group at that time, but a national talent show rocketed them to stardom.
When I created the band, I shared the ideas with a few friends. They started to look for other talents to make the band more special. Today, our members have taken the band to a new level. It's beyond what I ever imagined.
Traveling from city to city, each band member experienced many difficult and lonely nights, away from family and friends. Then they found someone special.
Money used to keep me busy, and I barely had time for anything else. Exhaustion and traveling were part of my life. Until I found Jesus, everything changed for all of us. This is what glued us together.
Eventually, it inspired them to change their music to contemporary Christian rock. They're now using their music to share Christ's love with young Chinese rock fans.
There are many forms to show passion to Jesus. Could be through literature or art, even music. We want young people today to experience something new and trendy about God.
Their fans are attracted to the new music style unknown to most Chinese.
I am so glad their music is different. It's like they are telling many stories and hear all those miracles. This is something I've never experienced before.
While secular rock music is popular, Rainbow believes Christian rock can win many followers. The challenge is how to share biblical stories in their music.
How would you tell the story of David and Goliath through music? As a Christian band, we need to use some type of creative ways to show what we're singing for and what we're living for. The word love is being distorted today by secular music. Christian music can change this.
Xu Li has been with the band since the beginning and wrote some of their songs. As a new Christian, she's very proud of what they've accomplished. Most importantly, she's grateful God has given her more than she imagined.
Some of the words from our songs are from our prayers. They are not fancy. I feel God could hear our prayers even when we are singing. We encourage our fans to do the same. God listens to us all the time.
Their humble attitude encouraged one another.
We are not perfect. We just want to follow God. Wherever He leads us, we'll be there.
Today, Rainbow is traveling nationwide in China. They're trusting God for bigger success, and they're praying their music can reach more Chinese fans.
We won't stop. Our lives belong to God. Our talents belong to God. Our music is from God.
Mengfei Li, CBN News.
스노우보드를 좋아해 눈보라가 휘몰아치는 해발 1500m 산지에 오른 형제가 있었습니다. 즐겁게 스노보드를 즐길 예정이었지만 동생이 갑자기 눈사태에 휩쓸려 내려가면서 위기가 찾아왔는데요. 이들의 놀라운 이야기를 들어보시죠.
All of a sudden, everything starts to let go. The ledge and everything. By this time, I lost my sight of Matt. And the cloud of snow was so big I couldn't see my hand in front of my face, thinking he's dead and there's no way I'm ever going to find him.
Michael Walsh and his younger brother Matt thought they had found the perfect spot for backcountry snowboarding in Wyoming. The mountain bowl had an overhanging snowdrift and deep powder. They parked Michael's truck and climbed to the steepest point, never thinking about avalanche danger.
It's kind of just a cliff, basically, a snow cliff that builds up with all the wind. And as it blows, it just kind of curls and curls and curls and just builds up a big ledge. Well, we were sitting right on the edge of it. The original plan was we were both going to go down at the same time. I don't know why I changed the plan. He was already strapped in, and I had one binding strapped in at this time. And I looked over at him, and I was like, "Hey, Matt, what are you waiting for?"
His brother Matt jumped off the ledge and hit the slope below, triggering a massive avalanche.
All I hear pop, 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 the whole bowl lets go. And it sounds like a freight train running right over me.
Matt slid hundreds of feet down the mountain, caught in the avalanche. The wall of snow behind him hit hard, burying him under 3 feet of heavy packed snow. Michael looked on helplessly.
As soon as the snow clears, you see no sign of him, nothing. There's just rocks and sagebrush and dirt ripped up out of the ground on top of the snow. To see him disappear like that, and I couldn't stop it. That was very hard.
Michael had a decision to make. Run to his truck to call search and rescue, or try and find his brother on his own.
If I went and looked first, there was no way I was getting back up that hill by myself to call search and rescue again. And so I just cried out to God, said, God, what do I do? And I heard him just as loud as you're talking to me, you know, go find your brother. I never heard God speak to me like that before, and that was, it rocked me.
He ran down the hill, frantically calling his brother's name.
As soon as I get onto the slide area where it all settled, it's just destruction and no sign of him. I'm looking for a hat, a tip of his board, a hand, something sticking out of the snow. Nothing. And then I started to second guess myself. You know, was that really God telling me to go find my brother? I realized there's no way I was going to find him. And there's nothing, no sign of him. And then I finally came to a point, and I just kind of like gave up. I mean, I know it sounds terrible to give up, but I mean, there's nothing to see. I couldn't see him. I couldn't see any sign of him.
Matt lay buried deep in the heavy snow, unable to move, running out of air and hope.
Right when I realized that I was buried, and there was no way I was moving my body, I was certain I was going to die. At that point, I had given up on trying to get out. I knew I was going to die.
But as he lay there praying, he says he felt God's presence with him.
The peace I felt in that moment was amazing. I would say it was him with me in the moment. So I was ready. I knew where I was going. I wasn't scared.
He heard God speak to him and remind him of a prophecy given to Matt's mother when she nearly miscarried him as a baby, that the baby would not die but live, and God would do great things through his life.
When he spoke to me, I had hope. It was like, okay, this isn't it. You know, he's going to rescue me from this. He's going to save me. It's not going to stop here. You know, he's still got a plan for my life and a purpose for my life.
Matt says hope propelled him to action. He had an air pocket near his face, and he was able to dig one arm towards the surface. Meanwhile, Michael stood directly above him, unaware of his location.
Pretty much about to fall to my knees and just lose all hope in it. So I just yelled one more time, Matt! Like the wind's blowing 60 miles an hour. So when you're wearing a hood and a hat, you can't hear very well. Everything goes dead silent. And I just hear, Mike, I'm fine. There's no way I should have heard him in that, with how hard the wind was blowing. Well, I turn and I take a step back. I look under my left foot right before I set down. I see a hole about the size of a baseball in the snow. And I just start digging frantically. Well, I dug about 2 feet, and I'm like, I was crazy, you know. That wasn't really him. And I just kept digging, and dug another foot. And I could see the Oakley symbol on his jacket that I had just bought him like a week before that. And I dug to his face, and I could see his face that he was still alive and okay. I started crying like a baby. I was so happy, but so scared all at the same time.
He spent the next half hour digging Matt out of what could have been a snowy grave. They say it was only by God's grace that they made it out alive.
He led me right to the spot where Matt was. I mean, I didn't know where he was. I had no idea which direction he was, the way it swept him, you know. And to lead me dead center on top of him, that's not coincidence. Everything was just fell into place, just perfect. God met me there and was standing there and held my hand all the way down that and kept me safe and him safe.
I think I survived because God has a bigger plan for my life. You know, he has big things in store for me, and I don't think that he was going to let that be foiled by an avalanche. I think that it wasn't his will. I'm definitely very thankful, you know, that God would rescue me from this, that he would work it out in a way that we both come out okay.
Definitely the scariest thing I've ever had happen to me in my life. I mean, watching my best friend and thinking he's dead and there's no way I'm ever going to find him. And then, you know, having the Lord just meet me there on that hill and be there with me the whole time. He was there, and he hears your prayers and in your time of need.
푸에르토리코에서는 프랭클린 그레이엄 소망 축제가 열렸습니다.
Nearly 33,000 people from all over the tiny island nation packed the stadium to hear the word of God. More than 1,000 prayed with Reverend Graham to put their faith in Christ. Take a look.
Dear God,
Oh Dios,
I'm a sinner.
reconozco que soy pecador.
I'm sorry for my sins.
Me arrepiento de mis pecados.
Forgive me.
Perdóname, oh Dios.
I believe Jesus Christ is your Son.
Yo creo que Jesucristo es tu Hijo.
I believe that he took my sins to the cross.
Yo creo que Él llevó mis pecados en la cruz.
오늘 준비한 소식은 여기까지입니다. 저는 다음 주에 다시 찾아오겠습니다. 시청해주신 여러분 고맙습니다.